All right, I'm Brandon Jones, Robert Harriman. We're News Talk. We're discussing some different topics, and one that we've kind of skirted around a little bit and come back to, we really wanted to dive into, is the incredible consequences and shocking consequences of the pandemic, the lockdowns, the isolation, and we're seeing this now track in other data, death tolls from suicide and drugs and alcohol use, those kinds of things. I think it was funny how you listen to some people discussing these things on the surface, and they pointed out, I think on the Joe Rogan show at one point, how they left liquor stores open, but they canceled AA meetings. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, way to go there. That's not going to end badly for anybody. This is data that came from a report that came out of the back in the it's called Pain in the Nation update, and it was that nearly 152,000 Americans died to alcohol, drugs, or suicide. And this was I could confirm data from 2018, and then the death rates for opiates were a little bit down, but synthetic opiates was up 10%. So we fast forward to ABC did a report that was dated in May, and they have a quote here. It says, "We've never seen numbers like this." This is the middle of the pandemic. It says, "In such a short period of time, we're seeing a year's worth of suicide attempts in the last 4 weeks." And of course, we have another report that came from Mises, and they did that state lockdowns are creating a mental health disaster. And in there, they're talking about distress and disorder. The science is clear that having meaningful human interactions is an inherent biological need that all people share. But in the name of public health, people are prohibited from freely and peacefully congregating. No church, no non-essential, in quotes, shopping, not going into work, no girls' night outs, not going to a gym, not visiting friends, no family get-togethers, nothing. No sacrifice can be too great in the age of COVID, per these, quote, experts. Extensive studies for years has correlated social isolation with poor mental health. So here we are, 3 months of just chaos, isolation. Is it even remotely a surprise that we're seeing people turn to substance abuse, suicide, and those kinds of things?
No, not at all. They were absolutely right there. We are social beings. And I've heard one person describe it as everybody has a third place.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
A third place.
That's
right?
a great
You have your
way to
home,
look at it, right?
You have work. For you and I, it may be church.
Yeah.
Or for others, it's some other kind of social place. But there's a third place. And you were stopping people from doing that. And the other issue is, if you don't have people working,
what are you doing?
Well, right. Look at the trouble you're going to get yourself into. You're going to be worried about taking care of your family. I have no doubt that issues like pornography probably shooting through the roof during that time. Right?
Pornography, yeah. Sure.
Yeah,
well, YouTube numbers are through the roof, right? We've already seen the data on YouTube. People were streaming all sorts of things. The ratings have been incredible for these, because no one else to do, so they're all sitting home watching TV. Mm-hmm. They're on social media. They're watching YouTube. So stuff that they talked about, right? So you got alcohol, drugs. You mentioned pornography. It's people are looking for something. Remember, there's also no sports. This guy didn't really mention it when they covered these reports. They didn't talk about sports, but my son had turned me on to a couple sports shows, and it was just fascinating hearing people just kind of freaking out a little bit that they didn't have anything. So they were used to football, basketball, not only watching, but playing themselves. Like, you couldn't go to gymnasiums and play. Their friends, these little tiny circles. Mm-hmm. Everyone's connecting through Zoom. We did a virtual NFL draft. We're just in a time where the consequences to this on human beings is not going to be good.
Yeah. And along with this comes the depression. He
doesn't really get into the data on depression, anxiety.
But a lot of that stuff also has to contribute to these suicides.
Sure.
No doubt, right? So, yeah, there was nothing. And this is going to be, when the virus is come and gone or does its thing, this is still going to be sticking with us for...
I said 18 months.
Yeah.
I told my wife and I were discussing it last night, and we were discussing the depression. We're not going to have divorce statistics. We're not going to have maybe abuse statistics for children. We're not going to have data for a long time of how bad this really is. And to think that we left liquor stores open and then took away any therapeutic mechanisms to help alcoholics cope with not drinking. So here's a temptation 24/7. You're isolated, have nothing else to do. but by the way, here's a person that can help you.
And what was the justification for that?
I didn't really dive deep into that, but I know that basically the premise of that story was that was not under the essential umbrella that you and I have talked about, even on this show, was about what's essential and not essential, the haphazard judgments that were made, particularly in California, where Governor Newsom was just making up stuff. Like there wasn't even direction and guidelines from CDC or any of the health agencies. They would just decide, well, this is the only thing. Michigan, of course, where she's like shut down a Walmart where you can only sell the food side of the store, wrap up the seeds so people can't even farm and have I mean, there's so many crazy behaviors that we're going to see consequences for quite a while. Not just the economics of jobs and all that, but just the consequence of, people now suffering with, as they said, isolation creates horrible mental health consequences.
Yeah, I'm going to still have to research that because I need to know why liquor stores were essential. I need to know.
I don't know. If you didn't give people their booze, I'm not sure how things would have broke out. Would have been crazier.
Why would a liquor store be essential?
The church wasn't.
Well, the church wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, that was brutal. Brutal. So let me ask you, because to me there were two camps of how you responded to the pandemic. Well, I guess there's three. There was this element where people would drift into their darkest places, suffering from distress and depression, anxieties. There's people that use the time as a chance to take on hobbies and challenges and things. I saw people, different forms of at-home exercise videos. My wife become a quasi chicken wrangler and farmer at home, and so different things for different people. Then I think there's a third phase of people who just did nothing, was couch potatoed, and they're really not particularly positive or negatively affected by that. So what do you think most people fit into that category?
It's probably evenly distributed.
You think so?
But but none of them I don't think are particularly good, particularly productive. Not even the second one you mentioned. You
don't think the hobbies and the...
No, hobbies are fine, but you're almost forced to do those hobbies because you can't do other things in your life that you would normally do. So I don't know. It kind of sends you off in a direction. I'm not saying it's bad, but
I think there's a lot of folks that it's like they finally had time. They finally made time. So for us, I know the one thing that I can say, the biggest positive for us was it forced us into some quieter family time. We would try to look at things a little differently about how we would spend time sitting in the yard together, just slowing down. You're not going anywhere, so our calendar was significantly less full. So we had better sort of quality time of doing less.
Right. But you said the key word, though. It forced you to do that.
Right. No, I agree. Because we get sucked into being busy, though. But I think that we all complain about being busy. We still go right back to our bad habits of filling our calendars up. It almost like forced us to be better and disciplined. And I think that we've tried to slow down turning that faucet back on. We've been reluctant to schedule a whole bunch of things again, even though some opportunities have arisen here in this state. So where did you fit on that scale of the three things? Did you really shift much in your lifestyle? How you handle things?
Actually, the whole pandemic's made my life astronomically busier. So,
professionally, of course.
Professionally, yeah.
The worm and germ guy, if you call it at home.
But no, I mean, it affected my wife. She stayed home, but ironically, she took it as a vacation.
Okay.
Because she works really hard, so
sure.
she just accepted it for what it was. I didn't see her as often because I was working late, but everything worked out. We were avoiding seeing family for a short period, and then there came a time when, I'm not doing that no more.
Right.
And I just took the right precautions when I went to see my mother, but seeing my daughter and her family, we just went about our life.
Right. We did the same thing. We kind of figured out what our circle was going to be, and that was kind of how we approached things. And then we would gradually figure out how to work this into this situation, work that in the situation. And I think that when I view all of the family, some of them just responded in different ways, like we said. My daughter, of course, because of the schools being closed, did a lot more homeschooling, but I think it gave her a greater appreciation of doing that more than she even had. I think she had more of a desire to do it, but this gave her that face-to-face benefits of this is what I can do, reaping the rewards more directly. So she's really, really take home a positive from that. I would say that I think that, some of them talk about reading more, again, hobby type stuff. Like I always kind of wanted to do this, and now I have time to do it, was kind of a theme that I would think that it fit the backdrop of that hobby category I was coming up with before.
Right, and you did classify that as a category, but I would suggest to you that there's probably a lot of people that thought they were going to do that.
Like I said, well, I think the third category is couch potatoes.
And they ended up being the couch potato instead.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, you could have that. And I think about things all the time, and I never get around to them because I become a couch potato.
Yeah, and this was really almost like addictive reporting and data, because you were seeing things happen. You were getting like, there was so much like raw meat to find. Like you could watch foreign doctors in Italy and UK telling us stuff in January, February, and you were seeing stuff in New York City, and you were watching all this unfold, and that's where it fed into the fear. We have to shut down, because you were feeding all the negative, but there was no proportionality with that. Like even New York City, right? We talked about how it was so concentrated in the city where these subways are relied on so much, but you go into like rural New York, that wasn't the case. People are feeding that. And that's where that one category, I can see people just riddled with anxiety and depression and just almost like a compulsive need to have this.
Well, I got to say, though, the situation that's happened in the past week has been much more disturbing to me than coronavirus has been.
Sure. I agree with that. All right. Yeah. Well, definitely something to talk about, think about in your life, folks. We'd love to hear from you. If you have personal stories to share about that, some testimonies, some things that maybe you did during this time as well, good, bad, or ugly, or maybe there's a fourth category that I didn't even mention. So feel free to hit us up and let us know.